Hey everyone, Pugs here with two new reviews for y'all. Today I'm covering Company Picnic and Pull Up a Barrel. Well, I was going to say that these are two Krusty Krab episodes, but not really. And they aren't strictly Mr. Krabs centric either. But I know, and you know, that both the Krusty Krab and Mr. Krabs are things that tie these two episodes together. So that's what I'm going with for today's connecting thread. As always, thank you all for checking out this video, and while I'm here for a specific commenter, you know who you are, I hope that this video is louder than the last two, or the last few have been. Not sure why they've been so quiet, but I changed some settings on the mic, so I hope that fixes the issue. It's just complicated because, as I'm sure y'all have noticed, I live on a rather loud street as far as car noises are concerned, so I don't want to just turn up my mic since it'll pick all that shit up too. Alright, well, anyway, that's enough on that. And so now, let's just get right into it. One of the many things I really like about these episodes in the post-sequel era is how they take established groups of characters and put them in situations that they're not normally in. You can really see this most clearly with the Krusty Krab trio. SpongeBob, Squidward, and Mr. Krabs are almost always at the Krusty Krab when it's the three of them like this. But this episode, Company Picnic, starts a new precedent where these characters interact in other locations, in this case Jellyfish Fields. And yes, we have seen this before, like in SpongeBob SquarePants vs. the Big One, but for one thing, that episode was a special that later included the other members of the Big Five, and the main trio of that episode was the Conch Street Trio. And also, that episode was an outlier, whereas this episode was more the beginning or early stages of a trend. Company Picnic takes a bit of time to really get rolling as we begin with SpongeBob playing around with some grilling patty meat, which ends with Squidward lighting his eye on fire with hot sauce in a rather entertaining sequence of events. And the episode still takes its time after this, leading us through a scene of Mr. Krabs trying to get SpongeBob to make him a tiny army of unpaid workers, which ultimately ends with SpongeBob incidentally giving Mr. Krabs the idea to throw a company picnic so that SpongeBob and Squidward's productivity would increase. It's kind of funny how the basic starting plot of this episode is almost identical to that of Yeti Krabs, but the way Mr. Krabs approaches motivating his workers is completely different. Kind of goes to show how many different stories you can get out of one base. I think that's pretty neat. Anywho, I like the idea of the Krusty crew going out on a company picnic to boost morale. We never really get to see this trio just hanging out, which makes sense because this is supposed to be, in the loosest sense of the word, a professional relationship. But I mean, come on. We all know that they're at least friendly-ish towards each other, and I think that this episode takes advantage of that. Now, is there something greedy and horrible in Mr. Krabs only letting SpongeBob and Squidward have this enjoyable experience because he wants to re-energize them into making him money? Well, of course, but it's also realistic. If you inhale enough copium, this show has an anti-capitalist message, trust me. Anyway, Plankton also makes an appearance at the end of this scene, showing an interest in the company picnic Mr. Krabs is going to put on. So this isn't strictly an episode about the Krusty Krab trio, but it's close enough for me. Because it's Mr. Krabs, the company picnic turns out to be nothing more than a sad, cheap affair, with the group sitting on literal toilet paper, and the food being the packaged condiments used by the Krusty Krab. This is sad, even for Mr. Krabs. Even Krabbyland had more effort put into it than this. Suddenly, Plankton pulls up, and it turns out that he's having his own company picnic. Well, we all know that this is a crock of shit that he's saying here, Mr. Krabs included, but that's the explanation he gives. He even has some robots that resemble SpongeBob and Squidward, which I think is hilarious, and Plankton's company picnic looks a whole lot better than the cheap-ass bullshit Mr. Krabs put together, so Squidward immediately abandons the Krusty Krabs picnic for Plankton's in a hilarious moment that leads to a neat visual gag, so wins all around. And yeah, I don't blame Squidward for quickly jumping ship. He doesn't get paid enough to have any kind of loyalty. And after half-heartedly trying to stay loyal to his own business, Mr. Krabs soon abandoned SpongeBob too, leaving SpongeBob as the only true believer in the Krusty Krab cause, as per usual. And thankfully for Mr. Krabs and Squidward, SpongeBob has enough sense to be able to stop them from literally signing their livelihoods to Plankton. Well, I guess livelihood in Mr. Krabs' case. Squidward would just be changing jobs, but given his hidden and repressed well of care for his job and Mr. Krabs and SpongeBob, he certainly would be sacrificing something. Also, I gotta say, I'm impressed that this slow-mo gag here was, like, actually good, because I usually hate slow-mo. Thanks to that gag, it is revealed that Mr. Krabs isn't the only cheap ass around here, because Plankton was using holograms to make his company picnic look good, and in reality, it was all just a mix of chum, insects, and broken down machines. Yikes. And then I love the little ending bit of this episode with SpongeBob being his adorably cheerful self and Squidward getting stung by a jellyfish. Hilarious. Another thing I really like about this episode is the animation. I mean, yes, of course, there's the burgeoning post-sequel expressiveness. You can definitely see it during any of the moments of slapstick here. But also, I just really like the boarding, I suppose. Like, I love how the characters look in this episode. They all look really cute, squishy, I don't know, something like that. And SpongeBob especially looks fucking adorable. Like, do you guys remember when I used to talk about how the first 3 seasons, but especially season 1, understood the SpongeBob being cute assignment? Yeah, it feels like we're really circling back around to that. Of course, SpongeBob has been cute between season 3 and now, but I don't know, something in this episode really channeled those early vibes to me. I really enjoyed Company Picnic. This episode was fun, and I had a good time watching it. The comedy was pretty good, and honestly, episodes that focus on the Krusty Krab trio usually work well for me because it's between this trio that oftentimes the best comedy of the show comes about. Not that this episode showcased any of that, but I more mean that there's usually a way to write at least some funny jokes when bouncing between these 3 characters, and that's what this episode does. My main issue when it comes to this episode are that it has, a few too many moments of things feeling slow and not having much to laugh at, like the beginning of the episode or where they're first at the company picnic. Both of those weren't landing perfectly, but they weren't bad or anything like that. And so I think this episode works best in my great tier, where it comes in with a score of 8.9 out of 10. Pull Up a Barrel is a rather unique episode, at least it was for its time. I mean, I'd still say this applies now, even though there are more episodes these days centered around a story being told. But anyway, the closest thing we've had to this episode is Friend or Foe, but even that episode doesn't quite invoke the same vibes as Mr. Krabs' dramatized past that is showcased here, and that's good because that's what allows this episode to stand out. And also, I just really like the idea of an episode being a story like this. It's fun, and the narrative can be played around with a bit since the retelling can always be biased. This episode begins with Mr. Krabs being, as always, the money-hungry crab that he is, somehow able to detect if money is in a 5-mile radius. Since there's no customers to be found at the Krusty Krab, Mr. Krabs decides to close up shop early, which is definitely a money-saving maneuver. We get another stroke of realism when Mr. Krabs says that Squidward can't leave until the last customer leaves, some guy who has been apparently sucking on a fry for an hour. If you've ever worked a closing shift in the service industry, you know that those final customers are the literal bane of your existence, so I am very familiar with Squidward's irritation here. I also like this little example of the rapport between Mr. Krabs and Squidward. One day we'll get an episode with just the two of them. One day. Once the last customer leaves, and Squidward is about ready to go along with him, this is, of course, when the nastiest, windiest storm ever rolls in, frying Squidward's ass with some lightning, which forces him to go back inside. This was all really funny, and even better, the storm brings with it some wonderful atmosphere. I am loving these backgrounds, and that atmosphere is also perfect for telling stories. I mean, dark and stormy, that's prime storytime weather. And since the Krusty crew is stuck inside, Mr. Krabs decides to regale them with a tale from his old Navy days. I like how Mr. Krabs' story incorporates the characters we know and love, giving them some really neat designs, and I also love how these familiar characters are put in places you wouldn't necessarily expect, like Patrick as the captain of the ship, or Squidward as one of the guards. It turns out that while Mr. Krabs was in the Navy, he was the ship's cook, which checks out with Squilliam Returns, although of course in that episode he couldn't cook for shit, and in this episode his captain has a problem with him because his food is too delicious. The idea that Mr. Krabs' food is so good that it's coddling the Navymen is amusing. It's wonderfully silly, just like the fact that Mr. Krabs and the rest of the crew were transporting sunscreen. Mr. Krabs is only able to abide by his captain's orders for a minute before he decides to hell with it and feeds his crew some actually good food. Eventually, Mr. Krabs' mutiny ends with him in the brig, which is where that Squidward as the guard comes into play. We also see SpongeBob as a guard, and I like the real SpongeBob's unintentional roasting of himself here. I'm also going to pretend that Mr. Krabs seemingly mentoring the guard in cooking is a Mr. Krabs SpongeBob father-son crumb, because why not? Like, was it literally only so Mr. Krabs would have the means to escape? Yes, but let me dream. Anyway, right as Mr. Krabs is about to escape, pirates attack the ship, led by their queen, who is played, for lack of a better term, whatever, who is represented slash played by Sandy, which is rather fitting. It's also just nice to see Sandy, even if it isn't the real her. The ensuing action sequence, if you can call it that, is fun and has some good jokes all over the place. I especially love the scene between the SpongeBob guard and the captain. Like, it's funny watching this SpongeBob smack this Patrick in the face, since that's not something we would really see in the show proper, usually. I know there's at least one instance of this happening, but shush. I also really like the joke of the scar on the captain's face being fake. And then I like the resolution of the story, with Mr. Krabs smuggling the cotton candy key he made over to the Pirate Queen, and neither SpongeBob or Squidward actually understanding what happened there, but SpongeBob going along with the winking anyway. Pull Up a Barrel was simply fun and enjoyable. It wasn't super funny, but it definitely did its job of entertaining me, so can't complain about that. And I just loved seeing Mr. Krabs narrate all of this. Clancy Brown did a great job as always. And thinking of this episode now, post Search for Square Pants, yeah, Mr. Krabs' sailorness is always a fun trait to explore. I suppose the one thing I didn't like in this episode were the nods towards some kind of romance between Mr. Krabs and the Pirate Queen, aka Sandy. No thank you, no more of that, on so many levels, no, but I don't think this is ever revisited again, so I'm not particularly upset with it, just didn't vibe with it. And so with that in mind, I'd say this episode works best in my amazing tier, where it comes in with a score of 9 out of 10. As always, I'll be ending this video with some closing thoughts of mine. This is such a, I don't know, nitpick, I guess, but like, I think it's interesting how Mr. Krabs is usually referred to as having been in the Navy, but there's never any indication that he was in any actual, like, Navy, like, the military, which, good, I don't like the military, but also, like, I wish they'd stop saying the Navy when it's not actually the Navy. Like, wouldn't he just be more of a sailor, a ship crewman? Yeah, I'm sure it's because Navy sounds cooler and has more ready associations, but I just like to be accurate. Hopefully it's obvious that I don't really care about this. It's just something that I think about every time Mr. Krabs' history in the Navy is brought up. I also think it's funny that Mr. Krabs has been said to have both history as a pirate and as a Navy man. You'd think those would be very opposite things. Can you tell that I overthink literally all of the time? Anyway, well, actually, I think that's it for today. Can't think of anything else I'd want to say about these episodes, so I suppose I'll go ahead and close things out here, and I'll see y'all in the next review.